Alright, peeps, hope you're having a good October week, doing something productive, whatever. I just thought I'd come on and do this video because I've been meaning to do this one for quite a while because it's quite a notorious case, and there was parts of it, to be honest, that just I found quite uh, galling, if I'm honest. In the case that I'm referring to was a murder that happened in June of 2018, so I was still in prison at the time. It was like the year before I was released. Um, and it refers to the murder of a young guy, Stephen Donaldson, in the Kirriemuir. It's a small kind of town in Angus, which is like kind of near Dundee. But it's it's outside Dundee, but that's like the closest major city, I believe, in Scotland. But Stephen Donaldson, for all intents and purposes, was a young guy, had his whole life ahead of him. Seemed quite popular, had a lot of pals, a good social circle, decent family, decent employment. Apparently he worked in offshore in the oil rigs, so good start to life, you know what I mean? And he was found savagely murdered at Kinnordy Loch, which is a nature reserve outside Kirriemuir. And when I watched a decent documentary about it. While I was still in prison, I'm sure I watched it. And I believe that when the major investigations team had first discovered his body and his car, which was a complete shell, it was torched beyond recognition, to the extent where I don't even know if there would have been any productive evidence apart from maybe like indications are obviously it was willfully destroyed to cover up probably forensic evidence, I would imagine, if I was looking at it from the point of view of the offenders. And I believe that when they first kind of discovered the scene, I think that the initial kind of hunch was that it was some sort of kind of drug related / organised crime, kind of organised crime linked. Do you know what I mean? But when they've delved into Stephen's background and stuff, that they've saw that it wasn't this type of offence at all, and the vast majority of evidence in this crime was harvested for Stephen's personal communication device, i.e. his mobile phone, and by harvesting the data for his mobile phone, I mean, listen, this is a new investigative tool in law enforcement agencies across the planet. It's probably the first thing the cops will ask if you're kind of suspected of a major crime. The first thing they'll do is seize your computer, your laptops, your phones, tablets, anything, because they know that for all intents and purposes, we live in a new age where everybody's glued to their phones, and it's how you can how do I put it? Almost everybody uses their phone for all sorts of different reasons, communicating, banking, whatever, right? And it would it would give them a good picture of who the type of person you're as well, because obviously you're putting things in maybe messages and all this kind of shit. But when they have went through all that data, they've found that Stephen was in a relationship with a lassie by the name of Tasmin Glass, who I think she was a few years younger than him. And apparently he was like buying her stuff, and he'd bought her a car, right, that she had written off. And I believe the relationship at some point severed between them, and she had started going with this other boy by the name of Stephen Dickey, who was a kind of, I think he was like a kind of local thug. I think he was known for kind of violent behaviour, antisocial behaviour, all this kind of stuff. And Stephen Donaldson has been kind of haranguing Tasman Glass for £1,000 to cover the cost of the car. I don't know if he bought it outright, or he bought it second hand, or it was on a kind of payment plan, whatever. I don't really know the details of that. But he's wanted his money anyway, and she's obviously, I don't know if she was in some kind of form of debt other than this, and she was being either unwilling to pay or she couldn't pay. But when she's been in this relationship with Stephen Dickey, they've been sitting in Stephen Dickey's pal's girlfriend's house when Stephen's been phoning, right? So she's offered to meet him at a kind of play park in the town. And I believe that either the ruse to get him to that play park was either on the strength of giving him back his money, or on the strength of she was wanting to sort the relationship out and all this kind of stuff. So she's drove to the play park, but she's had Stephen Dickey and his pal Callum Davidson in the car. Now, I believe he had previous convictions as well for violence and stuff, was known for kind of being violent, whatever. But when she's been approaching the locus, she's let them out the car a kind of bit, like she's no drove up with them in the motor, she's let them out so that they could walk the rest of the way on foot, a couple of metres down the road, whatever. So she's drove up to talk to him, and it's been, we're talking late at night, dark, whatever. And when she's been talking to Stephen Donaldson, Dickey and Davidson have approached and attacked Stephen Donaldson with a baseball bat, a knife, and I believe there was an axe or a machete used. And they just inflicted catastrophic wounds on this poor guy, right? Like, I believe that one of the blows had severed his spinal cord, which was either a machete or an axe type instrument. And I think there was defensive wounds to start with, but the poor guy wouldn't have stood a chance, you know what I mean? A surprise attack late at night with somebody who he put trust in, who he clearly shouldn't have put trust in. And it shows you how cunning and manipulative and devious that this Tasman Glass is, I think. she just like comes like, I'm not gonna lie, personally, when I was researching this case, she just oh, I could be vocal about it. I'm just not gonna be, right, but she just annoys me, right, and I'll get into that. But when Dickie and Callum Davidson and Stephen Dickie have attacked this poor guy, she has fled the scene. Well, I don't want to say fled the scene. She's left the scene, drove home, spoke to her mum as if it's like, know what I mean, just nothing was wrong, which is pretty telling in itself, right? And then went to her bed. But while this has been happening, they have Dickie and Davidson have put Stephen Donaldson in his car and drove to Canardy Lock, and whether he expired on the journey or before they put him in the car, or whether he expired at the lock, I'm not entirely sure, but for all intents and purposes, I don't think for this video that really matters, to be honest, because at the end of the day, the guy was brutally killed, and the car was torched at the lock. But when the three of them were arrested and interviewed, I noticed something pretty right, well, something that kind of pissed me off, if I'm honest, right? When Dickie Davidson and Tasmin Glass were taken into custody by the major investigations, right? Dickie and Davidson on the CCTV in the police station at the charge bar were led to the charge bar in handcuffs, right? Tasmin Glass didn't have handcuffs on, which I found quite irksome. And the reason that I found it irksome was, why was somebody like her, who was instrumental in this murder being committed, no treated the way me or you would be treated, getting into the way any male prisoner suspected of murder would be treated. And what kind of annoys me about it is, like, women want and expect equal treatment to men in all aspects of life, except in the criminal justice and the penal system. That's quite it shouldn't matter what fucking sex you are. If you've done something like this, you should be treated like anybody else. That was just something that was quite an eagle eye observation, if I'm honest, because in the documentary, on the police CCTV in the police station, when they're led into the charge bar, obviously it was all at separate times, but they're showing you the CCTV on the same frame in the documentary. And I noticed that she was led in without handcuffs, but the other two were cuffed up, and that's quite the first thing in a long line of things that's wrong with this case, right? So during the interview with the murder squad, right, you can tell a lot about somebody, I think, with their body language, about when they're kind of discussing certain things like this, right? Now, the two male suspects, for Davidson's interview, Callum Davidson's interview, for the very short part 8 that was shown, he was given a no comment interview, so answering every question put to him as no comment, right? Stephen Dickie was answering questions, but I don't think he was being truthful.
But the two male suspects, their body language, they looked quite defeated. They knew the game was up, it was just a matter of time, right? But see, when I watched Tasmin Glass, who was being interviewed when she was being interviewed with the Major Investigations team, she was given a no comment interview, and she was sitting perfectly poised, super cool, calm, collected. She was sitting there like a fucking Siamese cat, ramrod straight, shoulders back, right? Giving herself away when she probably thought she wasn't giving anything away. And when one of the cops asked her, "Do you appreciate how serious this is?" She's like, "Yeah, I do." And she's flicking her hair back and all that. And I'm like, wow, man, right? But our whole presentation just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, if I'm honest. Because without her, this crime would not have happened. And when it went to court, it was said in court that Davidson and Dickie were blaming each other for the murder. And they were found guilty of murder, but Tasmin Glass was found guilty unanimously on a reduced charge of culpable homicide, which I just find absolutely infuriating. Because see if that was a male who had drove the two guys there and then left, he would have been made out in court to be the principal in this offence. He would have been made out to be the shot caller, the Mr. Big whatever, right? The person giving the orders, right? And I'm not saying she wasn't made out to be the instigator in this offence, but what really pisses me off is she got sentenced, right? A reduced charge of culpable homicide basically means culpable homicide is basically you caused the death of somebody else, but you didn't intend for them to die. I put money on it. She knew what they two were going to do. You try to tell me you've got to go meet somebody, two people get in your motor, and you let them out a wee bit away from the destination to sneak up, and they're tooled up, and you don't know that? My arse, mate. My fucking arse. And this is what bothers me about the sentence that she was given. She was sentenced to 10 years, right, in 2019. Served 5 years, right, and the parole board released her. What the fuck? And this is the thing I know, right? See, this poor guy's family didn't even know she was being released until they got an email for the parole board saying she was going to be released. What kind of shit is that? You imagine that's your son, right? And I've got a son. See if, and this is the thing, she was pregnant to this guy that she got killed. She was pregnant. It's his, like, she killed her unborn kid's dad, right? And what kind of pisses me off is it's like, oh, but she's a female. That's the kind of impression that I'm getting. Oh, but she's a female. Aye, we'll find her guilty of culpable homicide because she's female, and like, and we'll just we'll get, and the judge sentenced her to 10 years on the parole board. Like, everybody's looking at this wrong. In my view, she should have got life before the other two. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have got life. Like, I do believe when you're doing this kind of shit, and I always say I include myself in this. If you commit a premeditated murder, what do you think's going to happen? What do you expect to happen? you know the gig's up, right? And this is what kind of pisses me off. It's like the attitudes towards female prisoners is kind of looked at completely differently than males. But I know males, they make up the overwhelming majority of the Scottish prison system, and probably every prison system, if I'm honest. But I say equal crime, equal time, you know what I mean? I don't think because you're female you should be looked at as less of a threat because she didn't strike the killer blow. Without her, this crime wouldn't have been committed. Do you know what I mean? And especially the fact that she only served 5 years of a 10-year sentence. And this is the interesting thing. Do you know that this Tasmin Glass was, I think she was studying at Glasgow Uni at one point. I don't know what she was studying, but she was seeing videos of her acting in plays and all that. You know what I mean? Good actress. Do you get what I mean by that? And the way she was looking at this interview for this murder, she probably thought she probably looked at it through the eyes of she's playing the suspect in a fucking episode of Law and Order or Taggart. Do you know what I mean? Just stone cold, mate. But she was in the news recently because she has moved to this community in East Lothian, and somebody in the tabloid media had photographed her going to pick her child up for school, and people were in a furore, man, like want her out the town and all that. And I know I go on a lot of times about rehabilitation, but I believe there's some things you just can't come back for that. You just can't come back for that, mate. And to be fair, I think that she probably deserves everything that will come for what she's done. I think, and that's just because her victims' families, relatives and all that, they have to live with that, knowing she only served 5 years because out of a 10-year sentence, because she didn't want to pay back £1,000 that she owed this guy. Totally fucking with his head. Arts manipulator, if you ask me. And I don't know why any guy would ever touch a woman like that. No saying about this poor guy, because obviously I know love is blind and all that, but what I mean is anybody who from here on now who knows who she is, why would you get mixed up in that? Just sounds like the puppet master. Just a wee scumbag. And this is another thing I know. Do you know she got bail? Who gets bail for murder? Walking in with a coat with the fucking sunglasses on, not man. Know what I mean? This links into this attitude that I'm talking about. It's like, oh, you're the female and you've no conviction, so we'll give you bail. No, mate, this was a brutal murder, mate. And without her, this wouldn't have happened. Just utter fucking shite, mate. Our system's a joke, man, honestly. Letting her out. She should have been made to serve every day that 10 years. Do you know what I mean? But I hope the rest of her life's just hell. Do you know what I mean? But she'll only be in parole for the next 5 years or something anyway. And I know what it's like being on licence. It is a bit of a minefield, but Stephen Dickey, who was in a relationship with Tasmin Glass, he killed himself in 2019 in Perth prison. The other guy's still alive, but and it was quite telling what one of the policewoman said about her. She said, I went to interview her about Stephen's death, and she was working in a sandwich shop, right, like like a cafe or something. And you're away to interview somebody who's just lost their boyfriend in a completely barbaric fashion, right? And she's no stopped what she was doing. Normally, you would like what I would expect, right? If I was a cop and I was got to interview somebody about losing somebody close to them like that, you would expect like mo and sit down at a table, have a coffee, and you'd expect them to be sitting there and kind of pulling their heart out and looking quite downcast, maybe getting emotional. But she was storming phone fucking rolls up and no looking at them and all that. Like red flag right away, mate. Know what I mean? I don't think she knew how it worked that way, you know what I mean? Maybe not that good an actress, because if she knew how these cops were looking at it, she'd have sat there putting on the fucking the tears and all this kind of shit. So maybe not as smart as she thinks she is, do you know what I mean? But utter wee scumbag if you ask me. You know what I mean? But it's just a shame. I just hate when I see things like that, man. Do you know what I mean? It's terrible. Do you know what I mean? That they family, and this is a thing I know. See the day before, see when the family found out, then she was getting released. It was the day before they were having a remembrance motorcycle ride in Stephen's memory. Do you know what I mean? What a slap in the face. Utter fucking slap in the face. Do you know what I mean? There's not enough done to help a lot of victims like that, do you know what I mean? I don't think there is anyway. And I get why they think that there's more done for the offenders than the victims, do you know what I mean? I get that, totally get it. And do you know this fucking cow had the temerity to appeal her sentence? Wow, mate. You're appealing a 10 for what you done? Fuck's sake, you've got a lib date, mate. The other two guys don't. Do you know what I mean? Shocking, man. But I'm got to boost anyway. That's me for the day. But got something happening later, so watch this space on the channel. Do you know what I mean? Should be quite interesting. But you all have a good evening. Whatever you're up to, and I will see you next time I'm back on. Catch yous.